Hello again and welcome to my channel. This tutorial is for a baby cardigan. It will fit an average newborn. It'll also fit the baby reborn dolls as well. If you wanted to make it slightly bigger, you could always go up a hook size. You could also do it in an Aran yarn with a bigger hook and it would come out slightly bigger, but this particular one is designed to fit an average newborn baby. I'm using a double knit yarn and you will be able to make the whole cardigan from a 100-gram ball. You might have a little bit left over. If you do, you could always make a pair of little boots to match the cardigan. So we start with a 4.5mm hook if you're using a double knit yarn, and you will need to chain 49. I'll not show you how to chain. I'm hoping that you would already be able to work a chain. So I've got here the chain of 49 and we're going to work a double into the fourth chain from the hook. So we've got 1, 2, 3 and the fourth one. So yarn over into the chain, pick up a loop, yarn over through 2 and yarn over through 2. We're now going to work a double into each of the chains all the way along to the end. And again, I'll not bore you with me working doubles all the way across. And if you want to pause the video at this point and work your doubles until you reach the end of the chain, and I'll meet you there. So we've now got 47 stitches, that's including the 3 chain at the very beginning of the row. So for row 2 we're going to work 3 chain, and this is going to count as the first stitch. Then we're going to flip over and we're going to work a double into the first stitch, and then we work 2 doubles into the next one. Because we're working from the yoke down, we need to increase every other row. We work 6 rows altogether for the yoke, and we're going to increase on 3 of them. So we've done the 3 chain that counts as the first stitch, we've got 1 double, and then we've got the 2 doubles into the same stitch. We're now going to work 3 doubles, 1 in each of the next 3 stitches, and then we work 2 doubles again into the next one, 1 in each of the next 3 stitches, 1, 2 and 3, and then we're going to work 2 doubles into the next stitch. So that's the pattern repeat for this row. 3 doubles over the next 3 stitches, and then 2, oops, not caught that quite right, that's the third of 3, and then we're going to work the 2 doubles into the next stitch. And you can pause the video at any point to catch up. I know not everybody crochets at the same speed. So 2 in this one, and then 1 in each of the next 3 stitches. And then 2 into the next, and then 3 doubles, so if you want to pause the video and I'll meet you when we get to the end of this row. So I've just worked the last stitch where we've got the 2 doubles into the 1 stitch. We work 3 doubles as we did before, and then that leaves just 1 double at the end where we work the last double. So we've got a 4 after the last double 2, the one where we've got the 2 doubles into the same stitch. This last stitch here will be the first stitch from the previous row, which is the 3 chain. So for there, we're going to just work the last double into the top of that 3rd chain. I'm going to flip over, and we start again with a 3 chain that counts as the first stitch. This row we're just going to work a double into each stitch, so there's no increase at all on this row. We're just working 1 double into every stitch, so we will still have the 58 stitches. So again, rather than just watching me working a full row of doubles, if you want to pause the video at this point and work along the row, just check at the end that you've still got the 58 stitches for this row, which is row 3. So pause your video, work the 58 doubles, and I'll meet you for the next row. So we've now worked 3 rows. We've had the row that was just doubles, and then we had the increase row, and then we did a row of doubles. So the next row is going to be the next increase row. It's slightly different to row 2. So we're going to start with the 3 chain. Each row starts with a 3 chain to count as that first stitch. We're going to double into the next stitch, and then into the 3rd stitch we're going to work 2 doubles. And where on row 2 we did 3 stitches in between the increases, on this row we're only going to do 2. So we'll double into the next stitch and double into the next. So we've done 2 doubles, and then into the next stitch we're going to work 2 doubles into the same stitch. So that's the pattern repeat for row 4, where we're just going to work a double in each of the next 2, and then we do 2 doubles into the next stitch. We're going to work the same all the way along row 4. So we're working 2 into 1, and then we've got a double in each of the next 2. So if you want to carry on, I'll explain the rest of the yoke, that we're working the increase and then 2 doubles. For row 5, we're just going to come back and work 1 double in each stitch. So after row 4 you will have 77 stitches, and because row 5 is the same as row 3, where we're just doing 1 double into each stitch, you will also still have the 77 stitches. And then the next increase row will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, row 6, and we're going to repeat row 4, which is this one here, where we're going to start with the 3 chain, a double into the first stitch, and then 2 doubles into the next one, a double in each of the next 2, and 2 doubles into the next one. So at the end of row 6 you will have 102 stitches. So I'm coming to the end of row 6 on my yoke. So we've got 2. I'm going to work a double into each of the next 2, and that leaves 3 stitches. We're going to work the double into that next stitch, and that just leaves 2 stitches. We're going to work a double into the first one, and then we work, just do that first one there, and then we work a double into the top of that 3 chain that we started with. So that will complete the yoke of the cardigan, and we're ready now to start on the skirt. Just make sure that at the end of this row that you have got 102 stitches, and we're now going to divide for the front, the 2 fronts and the back. So again, as we did before, every row is going to start with a 3 chain, and that will count as the first stitch. So 3 chain, and then we're going to flip over, and we're working now into row 6 of the yoke. So we're going to skip 1 stitch, which is this first one here, and then we're going to work a shell into the next stitch. On this skirt, a shell is going to be 5 doubles. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So we've got 5 stitches all into that same stitch. So we did the chain 3 to start, we skipped the first stitch there, and 5 doubles into that next stitch. We're going to skip 2 stitches, and then we work a shell into the next stitch. And the shell is 5 doubles. And then again we're going to skip the next 2 and work a shell into the next. So skip 2 stitches and work a shell again into that next one. There's 3 and 4 and the 5th double to create the shell. Skip 2 stitches and work the next shell. We're just going to work exactly the same all the way along this row, working a shell, skip 2 and work a shell. So again, if you want to pause the video at this point and work along the shells, 5 doubles makes each shell. Just make sure that each one's got the 5 stitches in. Skip 2 stitches in between and then work the next shell. And I'll see you when you get to the end of the row. Once you've worked the last shell before the end of the row, we're left with 2 stitches here. We're going to skip that first one and we're going to do a double into the top of the 3 chain. So at the end of this row you should have 33 of the shells, and then we've got a double at each end of the row. This next row we're going to split the fronts from the back. So as always, we're going to start with a 3 chain, and that's going to count as the first stitch. We're now going to do front post doubles around the doubles that formed the shell. So we're going to do it on the first 5 shells. So just yarn behind, pick up the loop, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. We're going to do that over each of the doubles of each of the shells, but we're only doing it over the first 5. So there's the first shell worked. We've got a front post double around each of those 5 stitches. We do the same again over the next 4 shells. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and then we go to the next shell and work a front post double over the next 5 stitches that form that 3rd shell. So we've done 3 of the shells there, 1, 2 and 3. Going to do the same again on the next one. So it's just 5 front post doubles. So you can see we've worked the front post doubles over each of those 4 shells. We're going to now work front post doubles around the 5 doubles that form this 5th shell. If it makes it easy, you could put a stitch marker after the first 5 shells here and then after the next 6, because we're now going to skip the next 6 shells. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So the next front post double will be into the 7th shell from where we've just finished off here. So again, just yarn over behind the stitch, pick up the loop and work the double over the front. So we've actually left a gap of 6 shells. Just check that you've got 6 shells there, and that's where the sleeve's going to be formed later on. So we're now going to work front post doubles around the 5 doubles of this next shell. We're going to do that over 11 shells altogether. So this one's the first one. We're going to do the front post doubles over the next 10. So we will have worked front post doubles over 11 shells in total for the back. Again, if it makes it easier before you start on this part to just put a stitch marker after the first 5 and then after 6, and then you can do the same again after 11 of these shells, just so that you can see where the sleeve's going to sit. But if you want to pause the video at this point and work your front post doubles over 11 of the shells from the last row, and I'll meet you when you get there. So when you've worked your front post doubles over the next 11 shells, there will be 11 shells left. We're going to skip 6 again, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. We're going to go straight into that next shell with a front post double around the first double of that shell, and we'll do the same front post doubles around these last 5 shells that we've got left. And then for the next rows we will be working on these stitches, and we do the sleeves separately once we've worked the skirt. So the side that we're working on at the moment, which is the front post doubles, is the wrong side of the cardigan. We've got a definite right side and a wrong side. So we're finally on to the last shell here, where we've got the 5 front post doubles. And that's going to leave the 3 chain that counted as the first stitch on the last row, so we just do a double crochet into that stitch. So when you now turn over to the right side, the cardigan has been split into the fronts and the back and the sleeves there. So for this next row, this is going to form the pattern repeat, and it's very similar to the row that we did where we actually split the yoke into fronts and backs. We're going to work 3 chain that counts as the first stitch, and then we've got 5 stitches here that were the front post doubles that we worked on the last row into the middle stitch. So we're going to skip 2, and into the 3rd stitch we're going to work 5 doubles, and that's going to form the shell. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and then we're going to skip the next 2 stitches and the next 2 stitches from the next shell, so we're skipping 4 altogether, and we're going to work a shell into that middle front post double from the last round. So this row is just the same all the way along. We're working a shell into the 3rd stitch along. We've got that first one here, and then we skip 2. We've got the shell into the 3rd. We skip 4 stitches, and then we work a shell, and we just do that all the way along the row till you get to the very end, where we're going to work a double into the last stitch. So it's just skip 4, work the shell, and then skip 4 and work a shell all the way along, and then to come back On the next row, which is the second row of the pattern repeat, we just do a 3 chain into the first stitch, and then we're just going to work front post doubles into every stitch all the way along to the end. So we're going to work these 2 rows now until the skirt, or until your work measures about 9 inches from the top of the yoke down to the bottom of the skirt. So if you want to pause the video and work those 2 rows, there's only 2 rows to the pattern. The row where we've got the 5 doubles into the 1 stitch to form the shell, and that's in the middle of the 5 stitches that form the shell from the previous row. We're going to skip the last 2 stitches of the previous shell. We're going to skip the first 2 stitches of the next one, and we're going to work the next shell into that 3rd stitch. So you can see here how the pattern has formed. I've done 1, 2, 3, 4 of the shells, and I've worked the 4 rows of working the the front post double on the other side. So the wrong side will look like this, the right side is the side that's got the waves. I'll not carry on and work until it measures 9 inches. I can show you now how to work the sleeves rather than working the whole of the skirt. But the skirt should measure, well, it's not the skirt, it's from the top here. As you look at the cardigan frontwards on, you'll have 9 inches between the top of the yoke and the bottom of the skirt. So the skirt will look like this at the back of the cardigan, and you've got the skirt there on the front. For mine, as I've worked with my tension, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the waves to form the skirt of my cardigan. But if you want yours to be longer, by all means do more rows, because it is just those 2 rows that form the pattern. So I'll show you now how to work the sleeves. We're going to start, and we work these in rounds. There isn't a side to seam to sew up. It's easier to work these in the round. So we're going to flip over for each round again, so that you'll have a right side and a wrong side. So I'll just join the yarn to the hook, and just make sure that you're actually joining on the wrong side. It's the side where we did the front post doubles. We're going to join the yarn into the center of the underarm. So we've got 6 shells, and we've got this space here. That's where we're going to join the yarn, and I'm going to join with a standing front post double, a standing double into that chain space there. If you prefer to, and you don't like to do the front post doubles, you can do 3 chain there to count as the first stitch. So we're now going to work into the 6 shells. It's the same pattern repeat as before. We're going to work front post doubles into each stitch all the way round. So it's 1 front post double in each of the 5 stitches, and we'll do that 6 times because we had the 6 shells to form the sleeve. So we've got 4, there's the 5th one, and then we're going to go straight onto the next shell and work the 5 front post doubles again on that next shell. And then into the 3rd shell we're going to do exactly the same. working a front post double around each of the stitches in that next shell. And it's the same pattern repeat that we had for the skirt that's going to be onto the sleeves, but instead of having a double at each end of the row, we've just got the one double that sits in the middle, and that's going to be under the arm. Just work all the way around the sleeve. So this is the last shell, which is the 6th shell that forms the sleeve, and then we find that we're back to this first stitch here, and we're just going to join into that stitch with a slip stitch, which will mean that we don't have a seam to sew. So now you need to remember to turn the work over, because we're now working the shell pattern for this next row. So we're going to do 3 chain, and that's going to count as the first stitch, and then we're going to skip 2 stitches. We're going to work a shell into the 3rd stitch. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and then we're going to skip 4 stitches. So we've got 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then we're going to work the next shell into that next stitch. And then we skip 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to work the next shell. So the sleeves will have 6 shells for each row on the right side, and then on the wrong side you will just work the first stitch, which is the 3 chain, and we're going to join into that at the end of each row, and you just work a front post double. Just skip 1, 2, 3, 4 and work a shell. So the right side are the shells, so it's a shell into the center stitch of the 5, and then you've got 4 stitches that you skip, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the next shell, so that the shells line up for each row. And we're going to just repeat these 2 rows for the sleeves until the sleeve measures roughly 4 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the last shell. As you've done the last shell, there'll be 2 stitches that we're going to skip before we join into that 3 chain that we did to start the row. So we just join into the top of that stitch, and then we need to turn over because we're working again now on the wrong side. So we'll do 3 chain that counts as the first double, and then we just work 1 front post double around every stitch. And just to make sure that you've got your stitch count, there will be 5 stitches for each shell. So where each shell is, you're going to work 5 front post doubles. Oops. It's just a matter really of the sleeve to remember that we're working on a front and a back, which is the right and the wrong side of the work. But once you've done a couple of the pattern repeats, you'll be able to see straight away where the right side is and the wrong side. So you're going to repeat these 2 rows now until the sleeve measures around about 4 inches. So again, if you want to pause the video and work your rows for the sleeve, on my cardigan here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of the waves to form my sleeve. If you want to do the sleeve a little bit longer, you can do the 2 pattern repeat rows again. Again, when you've worked all the front post doubles, we've got this first 3 chain that counted as the first stitch. We're just going to join into the top of that stitch with a slip stitch, and then we're going to work on the other side again for the next row. So again, chain 3, that counts as the first stitch, and then you'll skip 2 stitches and work the next shell. And then skip 4 stitches and work the next shell, just making sure that you've got 6 shells for each row on the sleeves. I won't work the whole of the sleeve, it'll make the video far too long, but once you've reached the last row where you've worked the front post doubles and the sleeve is the length that you want it to be at, we're now going to work the cuff. And the cuff, you're just going to work 2 chain, and then we're going to skip the next stitch. We're going to half double into the next. We skip a stitch, we work a half double, skip a stitch, work a half double, and so on. We just do this all the way around, skipping a stitch, work a half double into the next, and this is on the right side where the waves are on the sleeve. So we skip a stitch, work a half double, skip a stitch and work a half double. This is going to bring the cuff of the sleeve in, and we just do that all the way around. And then when we reach the 2 chain that we started with, we're just going to join. I think we've just got one more to do there, and then join into that 2 chain that we started with a slip stitch, and then we repeat that row again, just working a half double into each of the half doubles from the last row, and then the 3rd row we do it again. So there's 3 rows of half doubles, but on this next row we're going to work 2 chain, and then we're going to work a half double into each stitch. We're not going to skip any stitches. So we've done the first row, which is the half double, skip a stitch, half double, and then we've got 2 rows where we just work a half double into each of the half doubles from the previous row. So the sleeve will come in and we've got the little cuff there. So the last row that you're going to work is just working a single crochet all around the cardigan. So you can start at the top of the first side, just join the yarn into the space, and then you just literally work a single crochet into every stitch all the way around the neck. You're going to work a single crochet all the way down the front there. We're also going to work a single crochet all the way, join at the bottom here, work a single crochet all the way up, and whichever side you want to put the buttonholes, you can just work a 3 chain and slip stitch into the same single, and you can work either 2 or 3 buttons and 2 or 3 buttonholes. I've just decided to do 2 on this one, and then I've used a little see-through button that matches any of the colour of yarn that you're going to use. So you can either do that as a straightforward single crochet all the way around, or you could do a crab stitch, which is the reverse single, and that will complete the cardigan. As I say, you can make it longer in the sleeve, you can make it longer in the skirt, it's entirely up to you. But to work the cardigan in the size that I've worked here, you would need a 100-gram ball, and there will be a little bit left over. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you'll enjoy making the baby cardigan, and thank you for watching. See you again soon. Thanks, bye.